Tonight we continue our monthly Inside Justice segment with Onondaga County District Attorney Bill Fitzpatrick talking about some of the big legal issues over the last couple of weeks and that are current. Thanks for joining us again. We
Always good to see you
got
guys.
Your orange tie on, appropriate for this week.
Yes, I'm very optimistic about this weekend.
Yeah, let's hope it all works out. Let's get right to certainly one of the biggest stories the last couple of weeks is the case against David Renz, who's been accused preliminarily of murder and rape. Where does that stand?
It's in the grand jury. It'll be completed very, very shortly. We're working very closely with the United States Attorney's Office to bring Mr. Rens to justice. He is facing at the state level life without parole, and we are not going to be handling the case with an outcome other than that, depending, of course, on what a jury does. You folks have been remarkably sensitive to protecting the identity and the privacy of this little girl who was his second victim, and I appreciate that. And I think people are naturally curious. She's doing unbelievably well.
That's good to hear.
She is a very, very remarkable young person. She's surrounded by a lot of loving people that care about her, and she's going to get through this just fine. And not to put anything off, but I probably will keep the rhetoric down about the case. If an indictment is returned, we'll have a press conference with the state police and kind of not have a media blackout, but I want the case to be tried in Onondaga County. And I want to make sure that I get 12 people that you know, don't have bias based on something that I said.
Certainly a lot of emotion about this from the very beginning.
This was a crime, Matt, and there are those types of crimes. The Jeff Cahill case, the other cases that I can mention. There are certain crimes that transcend one victim, that are really crimes against the community. And this crime, although Lori certainly paid the ultimate price, we all suffered a great deal because it takes our innocence away for a period of time.
All right, let's talk about another case that the community actually has had a lot of questions about, and that's the case against Martin Rothschild. Well, we don't know. Where does that case stand? As far as we know, there haven't been any arrests.
It's interesting you say that because the case against Martin Rothschild has been presented to a grand jury, and we've been in discussions, which obviously I'll keep private, with his attorney, and there'll probably be a resolution one way or the other probably by the end of this week. It's very, very difficult to go through a computer. It sounds easy. I know it's easy on CSI, but it's actually a lot more difficult than that to retrieve information from a computer. We believe we've successfully done that. We'll discuss it with his attorney, and we'll probably have some more information for you later in the week.
And also from the update file, Roger Springfield's case, he's preliminarily accepted this agreement, but only conditionally. About not being labeled a sex offender. I mean, is that going to work out that way?
Look, I heard his lawyer saying this was not sexually motivated. Well, of course it was. I mean, he positioned his camera to take photographs of the private parts of male athletes. When he downloaded them to his computer, he actually choreographed them so he could watch them in slow motion. Now, he's not Matisse. He's not a portrait artist. He did this for his sexual gratification. But ultimately, the decision whether or not to register is up to Judge Miller. We're going to ask him that he require Mr. Springfield or Mr. whatever his
Saha
that he register. And if Judge Miller says no, he's still a convicted felon. He's still on probation for 10 years. And I thought it was the right balance in light of the fact that he didn't disseminate the material and used it only himself. All
right, well, coming up, we're going to continue our discussion with the DA, and we're going to go back in the files, back to the 1980s, in a horrible murder case. A woman in Jamesville who was brutally murdered. Well, now her killer is getting out. Her family, obviously outraged. We're going to hear what the DA has to say about this coming up. We continue our look inside justice tonight with a look back at an old murder case from the 80s. Howard Marnell is scheduled to be released after 30 years in prison for the stabbing death of Sandra Ulrich back in 1982. Her family contacted us today, concerned and outraged over his expected release. So what can we expect now, and will he be safe among the rest of us in society? Were you surprised to hear that the parole board has granted his release?
Yes, I was, due to the nature of the crime. I think it was a sexually motivated crime. He wasn't charged with rape, but I think that Sandy rejected his advances and that he killed her, but he more than killed her, Megan. He slaughtered her, and that type of person Could 30 years cure him? Yeah, but I don't want him living in my neighborhood, and he hasn't been punished enough, quite frankly. He has ruined lives. He certainly ruined Sandy's life in the sense that he took it. I've gotten an email today from one of his blood relatives that says he can't believe that the parole board is letting the guy out. This is his own family. So I understand why they're outraged, and my intent at this point is to at least write to the director of parole and point out some of the errors that occurred at the hearing.
You saw that you had the transcript of the hearing. So what did you see in there?
For example, well, you didn't go there planning it because you had this silly little knife. He had a hunting knife with him. It wasn't the knife described at the parole hearing. So, and they say, well, the judge mustn't have thought much of the case because he gave you 15 to life. That's what that judge did every time back back in the 80s. He would always give out the minimum sentence. He'd always try to cajole the prosecutors into giving, you know, a manslaughter plea. Well, that wasn't going to happen in this case. So I understand that at some point people have to get out, or may have to get out. But 30 years, quite frankly, just isn't enough for what this guy did.
This was one of the cases in the early stages of your career that you prosecuted.
Yes, it was.
You, of anyone, probably knows this case inside and out more than so many people.
That's right.
To what extent will the parole board listen to you? Do you have that kind of influence that might be able to get them to reverse their decision?
I hope so. It was a 2-to-1 decision, which means, you know, one person, and they have the power to do that. They can look at it. They can look at it again. I'm certainly going to try, and you know, ultimately the way they conduct parole hearings has to be changed. Prosecutors should be allowed to go to the parole hearing. I wouldn't have allowed that error regarding the knife to stand. The family members should be able to come to the parole hearing, look at this individual.
Are there any states that do it differently?
Absolutely. A lot of states allow the prosecutor and victim's family to appear in person. There's no reason why it shouldn't happen in New York.
You can't hold another trial, but you could at least offer
the trial. Yeah, this man pled guilty. I don't need to hold a trial.
Yeah.
I mean, the state police put such a great case together that the guy threw in the towel, and to my disbelief, he got the minimum sentence on a murder conviction. But he has served 30 years.
Yeah, and at some point the law allows him to be released.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
All right, well, we'll let people know how that turns out. Thanks for stopping in again tonight, Mr. District Attorney. We appreciate you being here, and we do appreciate that orange tie, given the upbeat news we're enjoying this week, that's for sure. You're always invited to join the conversation about Inside Justice and all of our topics by going to our CNY Central Facebook page or joining us for the talk. CNY, that's our hashtag on Twitter.